Somebody put this in the chat, please. Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. We're going to watch him today. Voss is VOSS. Never Split the Difference. FBI negotiator. Actually, he was the top FBI negotiator in America for a period of time. And he shows great tactics of negotiation. It's a great book to read, just if you get a chance. And we're going to show some videos here. But the goal here is for us to talk about three main things I really wanted to talk about. I want to talk about mirroring. I want to talk about objection handling. And I'll talk about the power of how to use questions to discover. So those are the three main things. But I wanted to start with the inspiration being Chris, because I think generally when we think of negotiations, people thinking of strong arming people. But I want to show you that really it's nothing more than research for information and discovery. This is not about trying to strong arm people. Obviously, we could spend a whole 7 classes just on this, but we can't. So some things we won't be able to cover, but I did want to at least start with that. So does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay, before I get into the video itself, do you have any questions or anything specifically that you wanted us to address for this session? Negotiation, selling, which is also going to cover selling yourself. We're going to talk a little bit about interviewing.
So you said we were going to do about mirroring.
Yes. That's
questions to discover. And there was another thing that you mentioned that I didn't get.
Mirroring, questions to discovery, and objection handling.
Oh, okay.
How do you deal with an objection and handle it so that way so that kind of gets into a bit of conflict resolution to an extent. Okay. All right, so let's kick this off, and I want to show you this first video. This is not actually Chris Voss. This is someone else, and he's talking about something called persuasion. So I'll just leave it at that. Let's watch it. It's about 8 minutes.
Paul Salmon brings us his latest Making Sense, which airs Thursdays.
I've heard it said that the most valuable thing in today's world, post-industrial world, is the human being's attention and how to get it. Is that true?
I believe that. Psychology professor Robert Cialdini, marketing maven, art enthusiast, palm reader.
I used to be a palm reader, and I learned the trick that they use to make people say they're right almost always.
So what was the trick?
In the 80s, Cialdini wrote an attention-getting classic, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, intended to arm consumers against manipulative marketers. But those who made the book famous were the persuaders themselves, who make a living beckoning us every step we take.
Those ads, those signs, that's old school persuasion, directing people's minds to the content.
In recent years, however, Cialdini has made a new discovery about how to spin friends and influence people.
What I'm talking about is persuasion, directing their minds to the moment before they experience the content.
Yes, persuasion, the title of his new book.
Persuasion is the practice of getting people sympathetic to your message before they experience it.
Before they even hear it, you mean?
It is what you say immediately before you deliver your message that leverages your success tremendously.
Or if you are the messagee, that plays you like a puppet.
The best salesman I ever saw told people, I left something in the car. Can I get your key to let myself back in? I have an acquaintance who claims he got 3 great jobs by saying something before he began the job interview in each instance. And I have a friend who's a consultant who says he never gets pushback on the price he offers for his services if he says one thing first.
And persuasion demonstrably works, as we'll try to demonstrate throughout this story, by prepping the mind for the message subliminally.
There's this interesting study. A guy goes to a shopping mall in France, and he tries to get women's phone numbers as they pass various shops so he could call for a date. One of them is a shoe store, and another was a bakery. But in neither of those cases was he very successful. He only got a number 13% of the time. But there was one kind of shop that doubled his success rate when women were passing it, a flower shop. Why? Because flowers put women in the mindset of romance.
Not consciously, persuasively, by exploiting a rule of thumb passed down to us by evolution.
If we are paying attention to something, it's important. That's how we decide to pay attention. But a communicator can reroute our attention to something that isn't important, but make it seem important as a consequence.
As a consequence of the very fact that we're subconsciously paying attention to it.
There's a study that shows that people who were asked their political opinions when there was a picture of the American flag in the corner of the questionnaire reported more favorable attitudes toward Republican Party positions because the flag is typically associated in people's minds with a Republican belief set.
As are churches, and studies show that persuasive cues can subconsciously affect actual voting.
If people vote at a polling place inside a church, they vote more Republican. If they vote at a polling place inside a school, they vote more Democrat.
Now, marketers, or at least some of them, have studied persuasion's potency. One online furniture store tested images of fluffy clouds versus cold hard cash on its homepage.
Those who saw the background depiction of clouds searched the site for more comfortable furniture. Those who went to the site that had money in the background became cost conscious and preferred to purchase less expensive furniture.
But isn't it obvious that our consciousness is being affected by our perceptive apparatus?
Almost no one recognizes that the clouds or the coins had any impact on their behavior, and yet it did at significant levels. It's the cue that drives you in the direction of what seems more important now because you're focused on it.
Which is why we flashed the thinker at the top of this story, to persuade you to ponder the puzzles we posed at the outset, but never answered. What was the trick of the salesman, the job seeker, the pricey consultant?
In each instance, they did something first.
Starting with the salesman who claimed he'd forgotten something in his car.
He created a sense of trust, because who do you let back into your house by giving them your key except someone you trust?
And that made people more likely to buy what he was selling?
Yes, because he had created a mindset in them that they were dealing with a trustworthy character.
And the guy who got the jobs?
Before every interview, he asked the interviewers, "Why did you bring me in today? What was it about my qualifications that made you attracted to my candidacy?"
And what does that do?
It caused people to start focusing on the positive aspects of his case before they even began discussing it.
And the consultant who never got pushed back on his fees?
He would show prospects his proposal and his $75,000 fee, and he would say, "As you can tell, I won't be able to charge you $1 million for this."
And what does that do?
Compared to $1 million, $75,000 now seems trivial.
And why did Cialdini urge us to lead this story with puzzles?
One way to get persuasive attention to your case is to begin with a mystery story. Mysteries cause people to want to understand, to get closure, which cause them, I hope, to want to stay with the programming and listen till the end.
So read my palm.
No. Paul, I can see that you're a stubborn man.
I'm somewhat stubborn.
What I've done is to send you down a memory track where you would encounter times when you were stubborn, and you would look at me and say, "That's right."
And that's the whole deal?
No. Suppose I looked at your palm and saw the same thing but said, "You're a very flexible man." Now I've sent you down a memory track where you would encounter times when you were flexible, and you would say to me, "That's right, that's who I am."
Well, it might not be quite that histrionic, but I think I would say, yeah, flexible.
And I've even done that with a person at a party. Read his palm, told him he was stubborn at the beginning, told him that he was a flexible guy at the end, and he said, "You're right," both times.
But hey, Making Sense is supposed to be the NewsHour's weekly economics segment.
So economics, as it's taught and practiced, is based on the notion of rational maximization.
Correct.
This is not rational maximization.
No.
what new psychology suggests. It's the factor that is top of consciousness at the moment before you make that economic decision that will win the day.
And so, from Midtown Manhattan, reporting stubbornly yet flexibly, this is economics correspondent Paul Saul.
Now we know.
Okay, what did you guys think about that?
Quite interesting to see how you get what you want without saying what you want in the beginning.
Okay.
You know.
I know it's a longer video, but I really wanted us to see that. Persuasion. Remember at the very beginning of the very first session, remember how I kept talking about the power of words and that it's not about the actual words. It's something deeper. It's the subconscious that you're hitting. That's exactly what he's explaining. He's explaining that with every message, there's an undercurrent, there's a leverage. In fact, Chris Vaughn, that's not Chris Vaughn there. We'll watch a little video on him later. But he talks about in his book, Never Split the Difference, there is a game below the game where all the leverage lies. That's what they're explaining. So let's go back to this concept of persuasion. What does persuasion mean?
It's like influencing somebody's mind before you actually deliver a message that you want to deliver.
Okay, so now this is going to be the question I want to ask. We've covered already, we did, I believe, 2 videos. The first video that we did was what that we watched?
Are you talking about throughout the course?
Mm-hmm.
It was the one with the guy doing the speech.
The guy doing this. What was his main theme? What was his?
The broom. Be your own broom.
Broom. And what were you going to say, T? He said it was something else that he really started with. He got to the broom. 3rd grade dropout. Remember, that was his theme. And then the next week, we were watching Jennifer Hudson. So this is my question. I'll start with Jennifer Hudson. Where was their persuasion in that clip that we watched? I see somebody smiling because we're not going to watch that again. I know I already showed y'all that 3 times. I will not do that again. But where was their persuasion? So he showed you persuasion in marketing and sales context, but I want you to see how it transfers. Where was their persuasion there? You said it, T, actually, if you remember.
Was it speaking to the audiences while she's singing? Yeah.
Exactly. The very first words before she reached out a note was what? Listen.
Yeah.
It was persuasion. That what I want to show you is how it transfers. It's the same concept. She was taught the same way. It's just she is preparing you for the story. Remember how she came out? Remember we talked about creating persuasion? And remember how she came out and she just did a few notes? She didn't sing full blown. She just did a few notes and then she stopped. Then she said, listen. That's the persuasion. The preparing you. It's the moment before the moment. She could have, of course, gone to that moment, which was that climax. But it's all the things before that are preparing you right for that. So the question is, how do you do that when you walk into a room? How do you persuade? You notice you talked about which I love, the salesperson that says, I can't sell you this for $1 million. So now when he says 75,000, it doesn't seem as odd. Or it doesn't seem as, so high. But he just said, just by saying that. Let me tell you another story. Remember, he talked about the granting of the confidence. That's why the guy asked for the key to come back in. So there's a man named Samuel Tompkins, and he would, in the early 1800s, he would go around and he would ask people, he'd be dressed very finely, and he'd go around and he'd say to people, hey, can I borrow your watch? Would you mind if I borrowed your watch? And what do you think most people said?
No.
Okay.
What you said?
Yes.
Yes. Most people say yes.
He's smartly dressed.
Exactly. It's genteel society. Nobody wants to seem like they don't trust him. And he says it, I'll give it right back. Well, what do you think he did? He takes the watches and he never comes back. He begins to get this reputation around town because people notice that he's very confident, and that's why they give him what they give him. So they begin to call him the confidence man, shortened for con man. So the word we get con man from comes from a story about a man in the 1800s who built trust. Same thing. It's the trust. The same way that salesman says, can I hold the key? You're building the trust. That's why even when I'm selling personally, I'm negotiating, I like to start off personally building a rapport. Hey, where are you from? Sometimes when I'm having an international call, it's just starting with that. You're building the trust, even if it's just a couple minutes before. Remember, we talked about interviewing. I was once told by a mentor, people are really looking in the interview for those couple minutes when you walk in and the couple minutes where you walk out, because that's where your guard is most off. They expect when you sit down in front of them, tell me about yourself. What was your last job, that you're on your P's and Q's? But it's those initial moments. It's when you walk in, when you notice what's around you. Do you touch the person's desk or do you sit back? You know, those little things, but that's all a part of persuasion. They're setting the stage before they set it. So remember, we talked about being very intentional. When you know exactly what it is, what type of presentation you want to give, now you can start thinking of things to do before. Remember last week, I wore my comeback swinging shirt. You know, ever since, you know, each time before, and even now I dress more, I guess, professionally. But I did that purposely then because I even showed you I was planting a seed. It's the little things that are done, and I want you to see it, that it may not seem like there's a science behind it, but it is. So are there any questions? Because I do want to go through the three main things about discovery and negotiation, but any questions thus far?
What's the name of that clip that we just watched? I would like to watch it again.
You know what I'll do? Let me just put it in the chat for you, because I'm not, it says how to get people to yes.
Okay.
1 second. Yeah, that's a good one. And you'll see many, many more. Explains the science. Yeah. Just put this in.
Thank you.
Sure. Oh, good. We have still good time, because I want to go over the three different sort of arenas in it. But let me go. Are there any questions beyond what T said?
I don't have any questions, but I just the thought of like, I want to learn how to do it properly, because I feel like there's a lot of ways that you could make the wrong impression by trying to impose, by trying to impose an idea. You have to be very careful, because the person could misconstrue it in a different way.
I think that that's a good instinct, but I would suggest, and remember, we've been talking about this throughout. We keep going back to this concept of intentionality. I think being intentional about it, you're going to come out better in any event. So yes, people can misconstrue, but I think the problem is a lot of times people don't even think intentionally about those things. They might think about what they wear other than what they say, but other than that, how they walk in a room, what they say first, volume, pitch, tone, body movements. I don't think people necessarily think so intentionally about those things. So I think just thinking intentionally is going to begin to open up the pathways. Does that make sense? So you're far along the game just by doing that. Most people, I guarantee, they're not going to talk about how to walk it, even if they're practicing for an interview. It's always the questions themselves. They don't even recognize within the first 2 minutes, the person may have already made the decision. So the fact that you walked in and maybe, you didn't say something to the receptionist, or because maybe you pointed out something you shouldn't have, or vice versa, didn't create that sense of comfort. You're 2 minutes or 3 minutes into the interview and you don't even realize that they've already made the decision. And that's why it's important to be intentional, really being intentional about those things. All right, so
that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. So let me get into, so we're going to talk about, I really want to focus on, selling and negotiation. So what do you think a negotiation is? I'm going to ask you, Rahima, because I know you're it. How would you define what is a negotiation?
to me, a negotiation is like two or more parties who have, they have opposing views on something, or they're trying to reach an agreement on something, and they sit around a table to try and work out a solution that is beneficial to all of them.
Okay. Kirsten.
I would think it's where you are trying to communicate, come to like a point of mutual agreement about a particular issue.
Okay, I like that. We're getting closer. Mutual agreement. That's definitely getting closer. Lishay, what do you say?
I would say a give and take where both parties are left feeling satisfied and neither feels that they have been outdone.
Okay. Another interesting concept. What about you, T?
I think negotiation is where there are two or more people, and then they come with their own set of ideas of what they want from that discussion, and they tend to, like Christine said, they will try and reach a mutual agreement, and one will not feel that they've gained more, nor they've lost more.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that's a thought. So you're all kind of saying, I'm hearing mutual agreement, not losing. I mean, we're going to come back to that concept because somebody, I would think, through a negotiation would have to give up something, maybe, right? Or no, or maybe not.
Well, that depends.
Okay.
Yeah, I think feeling like they've not gained or lost more than necessary or more or less than the other parties.
Okay.
I mean, to like a satisfying compromise.
Compromise is a good word.
Come to that word. So, quick story out of the way that Chris Voss starts his book, Never Split the Difference. He tells he's speaking about he and his wife arguing over which shoes that he should wear. He wants the blue shoes, the black shoes. She thinks looks better in the brown shoes. And his story is the worst thing that he could do to split the difference would be what? To say, hey, I'll wear one brown, one black. Nobody's happy. It seems like, right? It seems like what we need to say, well, just split the difference. And his premise is the same way he doesn't split the difference with the shoes, that's how when he got a call that says, if you don't give us $1 million, we're gonna cut your mother into 100 pieces, how you couldn't split the difference there and how you don't split the difference in any other negotiation. It's a powerful book. I can't really do it justice, so I'm telling you to read it, but it starts with saying that compromise doesn't necessarily mean a splitting of the difference. In fact, probably from that example, nobody's happy with that. So the question is, how do we see a negotiation? I think the first way to look at it is to take it out of the Hollywood context, which is, hard-nosing people and trying to get the most out of it and wearing people down, and looking at it simply. And this is how I want you to write it down. Negotiation is a discovery for information. That's really all it is. It's a conversation and it's a discovery. You don't even have to say of information. It's a discovery. It's a discovery of need. It's a discovery of perhaps of want. The best negotiation, I think everybody leaves feeling like they gained. Everybody knows going into a negotiation that it has to be an agreement, that there's some give and take, obviously. But I've seen some people who have great strong-arming tactics, and maybe they were able to drive up the price, but they didn't keep a long-term relationship because of the way that they did it. So this is not about strong-arming people. It's not about being deceitful or trying to, I got this price in my mind. And no. It's really about a discovery for information. So that's how I want you to look at it. And I think when you look at it that way, and that's how I've been taught to do it, even with whether we look at selling in a narrow sense of I have something you want to pay money for, or sale in the general sense of just offering a product or service or whatever, you start to really notice that negotiation shows up everywhere. And I want to show you some specific tactics to slow it down, to speak very clearly to a person, to help them to understand where it is that you're coming from, and to see how you can get from them what it is that you're looking to get. Everybody leaves better.
It can fail though, Darrell.
Sure.
It does fail though. I've seen it fail miserably sometimes. It doesn't always, yeah.
Seeing what fail exactly?
A negotiation.
And when you say fail, what do you mean by that?
I mean, nobody, in the end, they don't reach an agreement and nobody gets what they want, or reasonably gets what they want. So.
Oh, it absolutely happens. It happens all the time. Typically when that happens, not all the time, there's a lot of other things going on. A lot of times there's negotiations happening and nobody's really clear on what the other person really wants.
Mm.
So that can play a part. But absolutely, I mean, none of these tactics are foolproof, so to speak, but all of them are going to give you a little bit more success. Three main things I want to cover today are mirroring, objection handling, and discovery as questions. We'll start with mirroring, because I want you to see. It's one other video that we'll watch, and this is going to be Chris Voss. And this is a powerful tactic. He's going to explain this tactic, and then we'll pick it back up and speak on it. And just tell me when you can see my screen. Oh, you know what? A second, hold on.
So mirroring is
1 to 3 words. Typically.
Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Guys, we're talking about mirrors today. Jedi mind trick. The last 1 to 3 words are the important 1 to 3 words. Listen to these examples to see how crazy it is that this stuff works. The quickest, easiest, simple bailout skill that will never fail you, never fail you. Especially when you're thrown off, when you're off track, when you've lost your emotional bearing. Mirrors are there for you. They work with the least amount of brain power. That's why they're always there for you. So we're preparing for one of these trainings in a very early day. No, it wasn't one of these trainings, but it was our training in our very early days.
Yeah, corporate training.
And we're supposed to put together notebooks. Actually, we're supposed to put together 3-ring binders. But in my head, those terms are synonymous. And he's putting this stuff together, and I asked him if he's got the notebooks ready. And he knows we're supposed to be putting 3-ring binders, and I'm saying notebooks. He doesn't know what's in my head, actually. You know, are you thinking something like this when I say notebooks? You know, who knows? Basically. But, you know, this is not a 3-ring binder, is it? This is not a 3-ring binder. I don't know. I don't know what's the matter with him. I don't know why he can't read my mind. But anyway, so I say, are the notebooks ready? And he goes, what do you mean by notebooks? So what do I say? Yeah, exactly. Goddamn notebooks, right? You say it's much clearer then, right? Because the word notebook is so self-explanatory that if you don't understand exactly what I mean because I choose my words so well, then you're an idiot. It's the same way I ask for directions when I'm in Paris. What do you mean you don't know where the Eiffel Tower? Where's the Eiffel Tower? You know, I only say it again louder. So he mirrors me. He goes, notebooks? I go, yeah, 3-ring binders. And, you know, that's why the mirrors are the great bail you out of the corner tool. Somebody's not on the same sheet of music. It's either you or it's them. A quick mirror always causes people to restate it in another way. It's especially effective with assertives because we figure if you're unclear, we just need to talk more.
This is Chris again. Hey, listen, I got a couple of questions I need to ask you. We've got a van out here, a blue and gray van. We've been able to get a handle on the owners of all the vehicles out here except this one in particular. Do you know anything about it?
Well, other vehicles not out there because you guys chased my driver away.
We chased your driver away?
Well, when he seen the police, he cut.
This mirror tool, one of the negotiation techniques, from the FBI 8, there are 8 specific techniques that we used in hostage negotiation. The mirror tool is one of those ways to innocuously get them to either repeat it or expand on it.
Get them to either repeat it or expand on it?
Right.
Is that what you just said?
Right.
Did I just do it?
You know what? You did. It was perfect.
Okay.
See, and I didn't even notice it. I was just telling you to use it.
That's pretty cool.
I don't know if you felt awkward when you did that because you did it intentionally, but I had no idea that you did it until you told me you did it.
Wow. It was awkward. It was definitely awkward. It felt, contrived. But you didn't feel that at all.
No. I mean, you blew that one by me. You blew it right by me. I hope you got the idea. Mirrors are simple. The last 1 to 3 words are the important 1 to 3 words. Make a whole day a mirror day. They're easy. Practice them. Get your repetitions in. They're simple. They're a Jedi mind trick.
Okay, so that's the last one for today. What did y'all think about that?
I was lost. Yeah.
Say that again.
I was lost. I took time to understand what they meant in terms of mirror.
Okay, so you understand it now?
A bit, but I'm not too clear on what it actually means when you mirror. When you're mirroring, so yeah.
You're not too clear on what it means?
What it means.
That was good. I wanted to see who was going to catch it. That was good. I wanted to see who was going to catch that.
Well done.
Trying, but I have to think about it. I didn't do it as quick as Slishay. Look, so this is a very effective way. Notice he mentions, and I wanted you to see this guy. So that's the guy, Chris Voss, that wrote the book. Black Swan Group he started as an FBI negotiator. He was actually the top lead. He was actually the lead international FBI negotiator for the FBI for like 10 years. And his book has all these different stories. It's like, how do you get out of these situations? But I wanted you to at least see this one video, which is about the mirror. Very effective. And all you're doing with the mirror is getting the person to expand on what they already said. So Lishay did it really subtly, but the point is to do it in a way where you get the other person talking more. Let's go back to old style negotiation. People think the person that talked, if they're talking more, they're selling. Actually, no, you're probably not selling if you're talking more. The key is to get them to talk. So they say, I have a problem with that. Well, problem with what? What do you mean? You're getting them to speak more and more what the issue is, because again, remember I told you, it's a discovery for information. The more information that I know, the more I can speak back to what their issue is. So the mirroring is this opportunity. And I can tell you this for a fact, law enforcement, they are very good at this. It's all it is saying something very subtly to just get you to speak more. It's getting you to reveal. Again, it's they want you to reveal what's here. So in his book, he talks a lot more about that story. That story was a bank robbery in New York. I think it was about 15 years ago. It was a huge bank robbery. And he was saying that, now this is, mind you, the FBI. The FBI was on this, NYPD, as well as the state troopers, a whole bunch of jurisdictions. And in 4 hours of conversation, he's saying he was able to uncover what they couldn't uncover in 4 hours of conversation with one mirror. And what was the mirror? He said something about chasing the driver away or something. He said, what do you mean chase the driver away? Or, excuse me, whatever mirror he said got the guy to reveal that they chased the driver away. And up until that point, and he talks about this much more in the book, everybody thought he was the lone person. And just by mirroring, not just mirroring and stopping, he got him to reveal Just that bit of information. And that was actually the key to them solving the entire thing. Just that, the power of the mirror. So remember, we're going back to what is a negotiation. I'm just, because once I know what's in your heart, so one of my sales mentors, he showed me this. Most people, so this is kind of going to part 2 about discovery. Most people will never tell you what they need. Remember that. They'll never tell you what they need, they'll tell you what they want. Because it's something in humans that makes us feel vulnerable to say what we need. So I've told you before that I've gone in and I've heard somebody maybe say, oh, we want you to go and speak to them about how to get into graduate school. But I realized really the need is people don't even think that they can make it in life. And if I go and speak to the want, but I don't speak to the need, then I haven't done it. So the goal is, and that's on a big scale, on a small scale, when you walk in, what do they really need? That's really the goal. Whether it's whatever it is in life, if you can ascertain what people need, and remember this goes from the first session, we talk about needs analysis. Well, how do you know that? You know it by getting them to uncover about themselves. Remember I shared that Chris Voss said that the number one negotiator in the world was who? I don't know if you remember when I said that. He says that he believes the number one negotiator in the world is who? Or maybe I didn't tell this class that. Maybe that was in a dream where I said it. Okay, so I'll tell you now. Oprah Winfrey. So Oprah Winfrey, and he explains this really well, that really what she's doing when they're on that couch, she's negotiating to get them to open up. You don't really think of it as a negotiation because you think of negotiation in a very narrow sense. But you are getting that. She is a world-class professional at getting people to open up about things they may not even tell their own parents about. But now they're on national television speaking about it. But he's saying the same way that she does that is how he was able to bring people's families safe home when they were kidnapped and being held for ransom. Because all he's trying to do as a negotiator is figure out what they really need. Sometimes they just wanted to be heard. They didn't even want the money. Have you ever gotten in an argument with somebody and they just wanted to be heard? But because sometimes we don't understand that, then you miss the whole kind of that whole point. So let's go back to a point about interviewing. I'm talking about if you're actually interviewing. Remember we talk about negotiating and selling yourself. If I'm in an interview, I'm going to ask, what are you looking for? That's important, not just a kitsch question to just throw out a question, but I want to ask that toward the beginning because the manager might say, look, or the hiring person, look, I am looking for somebody that's quick on their feet. I need them to be flexible. I'm not really concerned about them having a lot of degrees and experience. I can teach them that. I want them to be flexible. That's going to inform how I respond to the rest of the interview. Now, if I hadn't have asked that question, I may be thinking in my mind they want one thing and they want something completely different. Remember, his example, Chris Voss, was the notebook. He's saying the person might think the notebook is this, but the notebook is actually a 3-ring binder. But we don't know that if we have not asked the question. Don't be afraid to ask the question. What do you mean? That always slows down a negotiation. What do you mean by that? Now, this is slightly different than a mirror, because the mirror, you're just repeating the words. But what do you mean? I don't know if I understand. So remember, Rahima, you said the negotiation failed. My way of slowing it down was, well, what do you mean failed? Because I didn't know what you meant. Now that you explained it more, I have something that I can answer with. Because I really thought you meant something different at first when you said it. Imagine how, even in your personal life, if instead of us getting angry first, we just ask the question. Because sometimes the question itself leads to, I had someone who taught me, answers are employees of questions. The question is the key, the question. So let me show you something else about the questions that work. One of the things that Chris talks about in his book, which I love, he'll ask the question, if he's in a negotiation, how can I make that work? He'll ask that. Because people so this is the second thing about psychology, people like to feel in control. The good negotiator is letting you know you're in control. Let me give you an example. When I'm doing selling for meetings, one of the first things I do, if we jump on a Zoom call and say, hey, First of all, I appreciate you taking the time. I know we booked off 30 minutes of your, 30 minutes. You said 30 minutes so we can kind of go over everything. And then maybe the person says, oh, yeah. So I have 30 minutes. I say, okay, I want to show you a couple slides and then kind of just open it up to get a sense of maybe what you're thinking. And then maybe we could talk about whether this is a good service for you. How's that sound? Notice I did the same thing. I do the same thing in this class. You notice I tell you what I'm going to do, and then I say, what do you think about that? Why am I doing that? It's buy-in. It's intentional. I could just easily just start talking. I could just tell you this is what I'm going to do. But when I let you know, I'm subconsciously making you feel a part of the journey. So even when I start the selling, I don't just start talking. Hey, do you have 20 minutes so good? I want to talk to you a little bit about the product and then maybe get your thoughts on it. How do you feel about that? They feel like they're a part of it. So now let me go to, let's say we come to an impasse where maybe there's a price and they said no and I said no and we're there. Instead of it ending, now continue with questions, making people feel like they are leading the discussion. I might say, how can we do that? How can I make that work? So I was talking with someone the other day. They had a budget for a service that we provided. Their budget was $1,000. We can only do it for $1,500 per month. It's a $500 difference. So instead of me beating it over the head, I just said like this, well, how do we make that work? And he got quiet. And he said, I might be able to find an extra 500 somewhere. That would have been a different response if I would have said to him, can you find an extra 500? I want him to come up with the solution. If ever I'm at a place where the price is too high or there's an impasse or anything, I come to that question. How do I make that work? Well, what do you suggest? I want to buy it. I just don't have, I don't know. And just leave it up to the person. Let me give you another way of asking questions because we're still talking about questions. All questions aren't equal. If I am questioning the reason why someone may have done something, I don't use the word why. So let's say they did something that irritated me. I don't say, why did you do that? Even in a kind way. Why causes people to be defensive? Even when you butter it up and you soften it. I want to ask you, so let's say, I'll just give a scenario. Someone did something, you're baffled by it, and you're wondering, why did you do that? Why in the world did you do that? How can you ask the question without saying, why did you do it? So I'm asking the question. I know you're solid. So I'm doing good by asking, but I don't want to ask it too rude. So if I say why, it's going to be rude. So I want to give you a nicer way to ask. What do I say?
Can you ask a what question?
Okay. Tell me, what is the what? You're on the right track. What's the what?
What made you do that?
Okay, we're back. You're smiling, but think about it. Does it even, well, maybe do that. But what was what made you come to that decision? I'm just kind of curious from my own thinking. That right there is better than, well, why did you do that? You see just the subtle shift in the open-ended question. So even now, I didn't cover that difference between open-ended and closed-ended questions. I don't want to ask a bunch of closed-ended questions because then it's just yes or no. Are you interested in the product? Are you not? No, I want to ask things like how, what. I want to get them talking. And if it is something that they're saying, so let's say in the case of this one gentleman that says, well, we've only spent $1,000 per month on our budget for the past couple of years. And I'm thinking in my mind, your company makes $1 million a year. How in the heck are you making it on 1,000? But it's, So what, and sometimes I even do that. I learned that actually. Curious and confident. I learned that from one of my mentors. Sometimes you say, well, what was your thinking behind that? That just gets them, it shifts it. Now, like in his case, I found he had 1,000 that was already being allocated that he just already had. He didn't care where it went. So that helped me to even determine the discussion moving forward. He's not defensive because I'm not criticizing his shoestring budget, but I am bringing it to light in a nice way.
Yeah, so the why has more judgment attached to it, whereas the other questions don't.
why tends to make, for whatever reason, it just causes people to be more defensive. Studies have just shown that. If you just change from why to how, even in your personal life, well, how did you come to that decision? Instead of why did you do that? People hear why, and they've just, because they are automatically going to defend what the position was. But sometimes what how and what does is, I just want to understand your thinking. Because I really do. And when you present it that way, I'm not trying to challenge it. Maybe I am, because it don't make no daggone sense. But I don't want to say that. I want to present it as, I want to understand. So now that I understand, I might have a completely different reason. I think, so this goes back to Raheem about why negotiations fail. I think sometimes because you have two people negotiating and they don't realize that they're negotiating for two different things.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you been in a conversation and two people are talking past each other?
Husband and wife?
I won't go there, but yeah. But it's a concept, right? Because you go to the accusation, or you go to the point, or you go to what your assumption is, rather than just the question. Well, what do you mean by that? Remember the three nonverbals that I gave you last week? Excuse me, the three verbals: pitch, pace, pause. That's where pause comes in.
I was about to say.
I use that a lot. Sometimes just pause and gets them to say more. They say, I was talking to somebody the other day about something. And he just said, I'm just one of those people. I don't deal with cold calls, and I don't like when people call me out of the blue. And instead of me responding with what I would, something else, which is what I would normally have done, I just said, And he got quiet because I think he was expecting me to respond. He said, well, it's just a busy time. It's okay. Well, if it's busy, when's a better time for me to call? Just that simple. And not only did the question disarm him, but now he feels like he's in control. So he says, okay, call me next week. What day? What time? Today he's a client. And all of that happened because I made him feel like, okay, you're okay. So you don't do cold calls. Okay. And then now we go from there. That's the other thing that I learned too about letting people feel and they're running not feel, but they are. They're a part of it. No is not the end of the negotiation. It's the beginning. That is, again, in that book where he talks a lot about, and I've read this in several places, no is a powerful place. A lot of times people don't like no because people feel like no is rejection, but no is a boundary. There's certain sales tactics where you actually want the client to say no. Really, this is not reverse psychology. What we find is people, when they feel like they're saying yes, they feel like they're giving something up. It's just something in humans that when they feel like they're giving something continuously, they feel like the need to want to rein it in. It's just how we are. You can have, 20 toys that you're not doing anything with, and somebody asks, I'll give you this, and then you give you that, and you keep saying, well, wait a minute, maybe I should get something from this. But what no does is allows the person to feel empowered. At no is the beginning of the negotiation because I know where their stopping point is. So no doesn't mean, no, I don't want to talk anymore. So no is, maybe I can't go higher than that price. No is, I can't have the discussion for longer than a certain amount of time because I have a certain window that I need to make this decision. No could be, there's a certain number of people that have to be in the room and I don't feel comfortable with making a decision unless those certain people are in the room. But I don't want to run away from the no. I want to know why that no is there, because once I get you to firmly plant that no, then I can move on. Let me tell you how powerful the no is. I've been taught that when all else fails and you're trying to, you tried everything to get a person on the hook, you phrase a question that makes the person say no. So this is how you would do. After, let's say you've been chasing the person down, they've been you've been bugging them, they won't reach out. Let's say you get them on the phone and you say, look, do you think it would hurt for 10 minutes for us to at least just talk about what our solution can offer? So the question is, do you think it can hurt? Now it causes the person, because you phrased it purposely to get the person to say no. It wouldn't hurt to have a conversation, right? Because you're using it against them. Because if they change and they say yes, well, that sounds kind of weird. 9 times out of 10, you get them to say a no. Okay, so when can we have that quick conversation? I'm telling you, it's effective every time. They said no, they feel better. They felt like they didn't get somebody who they didn't know who was pushing them around. I said no, I'm empowered. Okay, now you said no, I respect your no. I'm not trying to override your no. That's sometimes with old negotiation tactics, I want to override your no. I'm not trying to override your no. I respect that no. But I want to know, no pun intended, how that no can stay in place, but I can understand, or maybe the no doesn't, but I understand what the no is coming from so we can still deal with it. Maybe the no is going too fast. Oh, sorry, just once, let me just finish this. That happens. People don't like when things go too fast. Have you ever been like somebody sold you something and you were excited about it, and then you got to the register and you thought, wait a minute. And that happens to people. And so sometimes what happens is right before they pull the trigger, now they got caught up in the charisma of the person and all of the, but then it's like, maybe the wife called, that's happened. Maybe a partner called, something, they look at their bank account, I really can't. So sometimes just slowing it down. So the person says, I just don't feel comfortable with this. Okay, why don't we come back tomorrow? The worst thing you can do is the classic sales move. Well, why not? Well, we can just reduce the price. You don't realize all you're doing is making that person more and more leery because now you're pushing them. So sometimes you're just slowing it down. Okay, so you want to wait. When would be a better time for me to reach out? When can I follow up? Is there a particular reason why you wanted to wait? Because if so, then maybe we can address that without waiting. And what is that you're really trying to get at? You might find, well, I just don't like to spend money. This is a lot of money. Okay, well, what if there was a plan? What if you put a certain amount down? You see what you're doing? You're putting the person, you're disarming them, and you're giving them the tools again. That's all.
Pushy.
Mm-hmm.
That's pushy.
To ask the question, you think?
Oh, like, when can we speak? Well, what this? By that time, I'm like, go away. Because you're getting an opening, and the person really has to give you that opening. Yeah.
That's a great observation. And you know what I would say to that? Everything that I'm telling you, you have to know what fits well for you, and it's going to be culture. Now, keep in mind, I'm coming from New York. You saw those videos from New York. We're pushy here. We're pushy. We'll call you 20 times. Okay, you said we were going to talk today. Why haven't we talked? Okay, another culture that may. So you're absolutely right, and you have to know. So I think not the peppering with questions. Maybe if it seemed like I'm peppering, I would try to maybe back up from that. And you're right, it's very key to match that person's energy. But I do think it's important. So let's say it's a call and they just say, I'm just not comfortable with it now. I want to try to leave that conversation with some sort of takeaway that everybody's comfortable with. So when do you feel comfortable with me calling back? So when I do call back in a week, you don't feel like it's out of the blue. Now, maybe you're the type of person that would bristle at a specific time and place, us nailing down. And I can kind of get that as we're talking, and then I wouldn't push it. But I don't just want to end it with, oh, whatever. I want you to know I'm respecting that, but when can I call back?
Very good sales techniques, though.
Yes. And I'm go ahead.
Lachey, do you want to finish your thought?
No, I think it's really good sales techniques. I mean, it really is. Without, I mean, if you think about it, that's what a lot of the really good salespeople use are those techniques. Without us even knowing about it, you've now highlighted it to us, and now I'm seeing I'm thinking of all these things. I'm thinking, oh yeah, I've had that used on me. Yes, and it is the salespeople the successful people.
Yes. And the ones that do it, because I loved how you talk about the mirroring. The ones that are good at the mirroring, they don't know. Now, the other people don't know that they're doing it. I know that there are a lot of companies that teach their employees how to mirror, but they're so bad at it, it's just annoying. I know that you're mirroring me, and that has the opposite effect. But the ones that are really good, you're right, they're doing the things and you don't even realize it. You don't even recognize it. That's the key. for it to be so skillful and so artful that you are getting the person to reveal more about themselves and they don't even realize they're revealing more about themselves. Kirsten, I know.
Sorry, Kirsten.
Yes, sorry, go ahead. You have the floor.
Sure. I just wanted to ask, like, if you were trying to communicate this idea, like via an email, trying to get somebody to respond to you, would you be able to apply this kind of thinking as well? If somebody isn't following up with you about something that's urgent, and you don't want to pester them too much, but you need a response.
This is a great question. So if I give an order of effectiveness of negotiation, face-to-face, virtual, phone, and all this internet stuff or emails, it just gets harder and harder because it's harder to catch people off guard. See, the great thing about negotiation is you're able to catch people off guard. You're able to get them to reveal themselves. Email is harder to do that. It's just about, actually, if you're able to do a negotiation over text, you probably would do better. In a real time, that's the key to a good negotiation. Once you've had time to think about how you want to respond, it's probably not as effective. When I say you, the other person. So how do you do it? It's harder. I think you try to get the person face to face. You try to get a person on a Zoom or something. But I think it's the same concepts. You ask questions. You try to figure out where that person's boundary, like where they're going, like what are they have a need, which is why they're having a conversation with you. What do they want? And just kind of seeing how you can meet that. But your emails are definitely more difficult.
Yeah.
So let's say someone goes into a store and they want to buy huge flat screen television. Let's say this flat screen, I don't know. How much would a flat screen go for in South Africa?
15,000, 20,000.
Oh, but rand though. I was
Right.
I have one right here. I was about to go sell, but rand. Okay. So let's say the person says to the salesman, it's no way I can buy that right now. How do you handle the objection? That's what I guess I'm asking. What's the response when someone gives you an objection? So whether it's a no or it's a pushback on whatever it is that you're trying to offer them, how do you respond to that?
It's a really good deal, and it's on Black Friday special.
Okay, but you still haven't. Okay, all right. But remember what we talked about, and I see you, T. But one thing really quick. Remember we talked about the person wants to feel in control. They already let you know that they kind of don't feel comfortable with it. So you're more or less going in that further direction to push them. But I get that. What do you say, T?
What can you afford in this circumstance?
Okay, that's a good coming back, because at least now I get a question. All right. So let's say you come inside. I can only do. Let's say the price is what we said, 15,000 rand. Let's say I can only do 10,000. How would you?
Now, I think when it comes to selling, is it going to be like a store where there are different TVs? Where, because if that's the case, what they normally do is that they'll take your price and explain the good features about a TV that's within your price range. You know, they'll make you want that one instead of the other one that you want initially.
Okay, but I don't want that TV. So the question is, how do I remember persuasion? How do I get you to see what I want you to see, but not see what I don't want you to see? So let me put it this way: the classic way of objection handling is to agree with the objection, even if it's absurd. Agree with the objection. People don't want to feel like they're being argued with. So you agree with it and you move on to something else, or you pivot. But acknowledge, that is key. The price is too high, or I don't know how I'm gonna get it back home. Or acknowledge. One of the worst things that people do is the salesperson has in their mind what they want to sell, and they just whatever with you and just kept going. No, I want to acknowledge that I heard that. I want to acknowledge it. I'm going to, okay, yeah. But have you thought about this? So that objection might still be there. Maybe the price is so what the price is, but there's other rebates. There's other things that are happening. I just bought a new phone, and You know, the way they kind of, well, the prices are going to change, but we'll throw in Disney and we'll throw in Hulu and we'll throw in. So it's like, maybe that's something I could go with. Because with everything together, though the price hasn't changed, I feel like I'm still getting all that value. So you agree with the objection. You don't try to push them off of it or make them feel like, no, you didn't see what you didn't really see. No, I acknowledge that. But have you thought about this? And have you maybe...
Can I just clarify? So are you saying when you agree to the objection, you said like, okay, yeah, but like in a, like, would you say like, yes, I agree that is too high? Or do you just like say, because if you're agreeing that, because if you take it too far, then isn't it also a bad thing? Because then the person's going to be in their mind, but like, you just said it's too much, so why are you still pushing this thing?
I wouldn't buy it either. That is way too expensive. No, that's not what I'm saying, dude. No, when I say agree, I am agreeing that you indeed share that and that is indeed your perspective and your truth. That's as far as I'm going. I could see why you would probably say that's a lot of money. I could see why you say that. Have you thought about this? So now I'm not going to agree that it is a lot, because ultimately I'm going to show you why that $15,000 is you're going to get your bang for the buck. But I want to acknowledge, okay, I could see that. I could definitely see that. Did you have a price in mind?
You could say something like, are you saying that I can call you back when we have our end of season sale and it goes at a 30% discount or something like that?
Now, I love that, because we just didn't have time to get into it today. What you're doing is something else, which is synthesizing the information. That's good too. That's something that even corporations are teaching their customer service reps. So it's a way to do it where you're not repeating exactly. So I hear you saying, because that's pretty much what you're doing. I feel, so what that is doing is that's establishing rapport with me. I hear you saying, even though you didn't say that, really you're saying, I hear you saying you want a lower price, we may not have it now, but I'll reach out when we have that. I might still end up buying this TV today, but the fact that you heard me, you're not trying to push me on, you're not the person that has in their mind, I want to sell you this and I don't care what you say, and I'm just going to keep pushing, because all that's going to do is make me want to push the other way. You know how it is when you've come up in your mind and you feel like somebody's trying to get something out of you. Now you become suspicious. So the goal of today was really just to get you to think more intentionally and effectively about how people are using these tactics. Mirroring, objection handling, they're building rapport, they're slowing things down, and they're just having a conversation. Remember the question, how can I do that? Do you have a suggestion on how? I don't even know, how would that work? Let me see if I ask question, how would this work? Open-ended questions. Frame the question in the beginning, conversation in the beginning. Yes, we talked about all that. Okay, this is good, Tommy. Any questions? I know it's a lot that we covered. Is this helpful?
Yeah.
Very much.
You're not just saying that, are you?
No.
But really, my hope is that, so remember, next week, we're going to go to more high-level persuasive speaking, boardroom, courtroom, more of an audience, more than maybe just 5 or 6 people, but we're building. We're using the same tools, resources, strategies, discovery. I'm asking questions. I'm slowing things down. All of those things make a difference. And now that I'm showing you this, you'll see the difference between the person that's doing this and the ones that are just trying to push their own agenda. You'll see it. You'll see it. The person that's calmer, has a slower pace, because even that, matching their pace, asking the questions. I don't want to seem too excited about, I know we're talking about sales here, too excited about it, because that, it just caused me, people are funny about that. So even that, being cognizant to when I am sharing it, I'm not, oh, I think that you need this product, because I think this would be a good product for you. even being cognizant of my inflection, that I'm not curving upward, but it's actually curving downward. Just in that difference in inflection. Well, what I think we need to do is I'm projecting calm and reassurance because I have a calm voice. I'm slower. I'm asking questions. I'm in control. It's those little things that are subtly suggesting to you, I know what I'm talking about, rather than the person, I have something I want to really talk to you. I didn't do that. And people do that, and they're not recognizing that's what you're doing. You're subconsciously signaling distrust.